one of the highest compliments you can give a band is to say a band is better live than in the studio. Well, one of my favorite bands, Iotunn, has put together two of the best studio albums I've ever heard. So when it reached my royal ear that they were putting out a live album, I was intrigued. And the question is this: can Iotunn put together the same kind of magic live as they could in the studio? Find out next. Welcome, metal enthusiasts, to a much-delayed episode of the Metal Dude Abides. This episode was supposed to come out a couple of weeks ago, but the flu and dental emergencies. It's been a rough health year in 2026. But enough of that. One of the reasons that I do this channel is because I have a passion for, a love for heavy metal. And it dawned on me the other day. I have been listening to heavy metal music now. I think I just crossed the 50-year threshold. From way back in the mid-70s when I bought my first Kiss album to here today. And one of the things that I have loved this entire time is the discovery of new music. So a couple of years ago, I found a new band called Iotunn, and I fell in love. I'm still not sure I'm saying this anywhere close to how it's supposed to be pronounced, but you get the message. Now, they put an album out in 2024 called Kinship. And right away, I liked it. Right away, it became a contender for Album of the Year. A few months later, when we did our award show, it was firmly in my top 5 of the year. And now, 2 years later, I might have to say this might have been the best album of 2024. That's how good it is. So I went and I saw that they were producing a live album. Waves Over Copenhell. Now, the first thing I'll say was, believe it or not, I was a little disappointed because when I looked at the track listing, almost every song on here was from the album Excess All Worlds, their first album. But there's a reason for that. As I started doing research, this concert is from 2023, a year before Kinship was even produced. And so while they had already written one song for the new album, the rest of this is from their first album. And on a side note, I went and looked up Copenhell 2023. Wow, what a lineup. One of the best festivals I've ever seen. We're a little envious over here in the States at some of the great festivals you guys have over there in Europe. So I started to not only listen to this music, but I also was watching it as they put out some videos for this as well. The first thing I noticed is lead singer John Aldara comes out in this like hooded outfit. I will have to say that as I've fantasized in the past about being a lead singer for a heavy metal band, I always liked or thought I would come out in like a hooded outfit, very similar to what he produces here. Something about Assassin's Creed, that look just intrigues me to death. And he also does something really cool with his mic stand. He has, at the end of it, kind of the Sauron staff with the things coming around it. But instead of that white stone in the middle of it, he's got like this spotlight that like shoots out into the crowd, shoots up into the air, which is really cool. Now, one of the other things I noticed right away about their show is there was a ton of fog. Now, I am not 100% sure if this was being generated by the band or if it was, being an outdoor concert. Maybe it was a little chilly that night. But the fog is really fantastic because when he's got the mic stand going, he's got this spotlight on the end of it, it just cuts through that fog so beautifully, so dramatically. One of the things about this first album they put together, Access All Worlds, is it's really about the terror and the loneliness of space. One of my favorite horror movies of all time is the movie Alien, because it has one of the best taglines in the history of horror movies. No one hears you scream, I don't want to mess it up. In space, no one can hear you scream. Ooh, I always thought that was such a fantastic line. Anyway, so if you're going to talk about the terror and the horror of space, right? The way they do this, and I think it's mostly possible because it is an outdoor venue, all this fog is rising up into the atmosphere. So it makes for a huge, and you got all these lights, right? Cutting through all this fog. It really kind of gives that vast feel to their stage show. Nice little touch, by the way. But enough about the aesthetics. Let's go track by track through this live album and see if it does the trick. Iotunn opens up with the song Waves Below. And I have to say, this is an incredible opener. As this was being released, this was a single that they produced, kind of a teaser for this, so that's where I saw a lot of the video footage before the album came out. It is an absolutely perfect opener. Now, one thing that I will have to say, I have a small beef with the production of this, in that it seems like they could have turned up John's vocals just a tad. Now, it may be because I have very old ears, but it seems like, and I think this is an intentional decision on the part, they bring John's voice down just below the guitars and the drums, so that when he's doing his deep growls, it comes in below the sound, and then as he does his soaring clean vocals, it rises up above the sound. So it makes for a very dramatic effect. But my poor old ears, there was times where the singing kind of got, my ear had to search for the vocal track in the middle of all the drums and the guitars. So I see what you're doing here, and I like the effect, but maybe turn up the vocals just a little bit on your next project. Help the old people out, for poop's sakes. But anyway, a fantastic start to what's shaping up to be a fantastic live experience. The second track is a song called The Tower of Cosmic Nihility. Now, this is an interesting change of pace in that this song's quite a bit heavier than the opening track. And I have to say, drummer Bjorn Anderson is an absolute monster on this track, but let's be honest, across this entire album. His drumming on this in this live set is fantastic. This is also one of my favorite riffs from the Grass Brothers. Again, I'm not sure I'm saying this name right. For those of you who may not know, Iotunn is from Denmark and specifically from the Faroe Islands. So they have some interesting spellings of their names. I'm not really familiar with, how you say things in Danish. So if I'm butchering your name, I apologize. The Grass Brothers really have a very complex but cool riff in this song. I think this is an excellent change of pace. They come in with all that atmosphere in the first song, and now they're hitting you right between the eyes. The third track is Access All Worlds, the title track from their very first album. And it is 12-minute immersive epic that really fits right in the middle of this set so beautifully. This might be John's, it may not be his best song on the album, but it's definitely his most diverse, as he has a wide variety of clean and dirty vocals that he uses on this. It's hard to pick because all the songs John sings so wonderfully on, but I think this might be the most diverse. The other thing I like about this is even though this is a very immersive piece, at the end of the song it has one of the most savage guitar solos on the whole album. In fact, as this is the third song, this is the best guitar solo so far. So immersive and long, yes, but real moments of brilliance sprinkled in. You can probably see this one coming a mile away. But song number 4, Mistland. The one and only song from Kinship has arrived. And so, of course, this is the best song on the entire album. I am so happy to have a live version of this song, and they do it beautifully here. Now, once again, I just want to talk about Iotunn because I really haven't had a chance to talk about them as a band, but The improvements they made from their first album to Kinship are just incredible, breathtaking. They are hopefully about to make another album, or they're starting to work on a new album this year in 2026. John had to step away and take a break last year in 2025, and here's wishing him good health, and whatever you're dealing with, I hope you're feeling much better. But the anticipation is that John is going to be back this year, and they're going to start working on a new album. So you have to ask yourself, if they have the improvements on album 3 from album 2 that they had on album 2 from album 1, it's already going to be a contender for album of the year, but it could be stunning. Best vocals on the whole album, best guitar on the whole album, best drums on the whole album. Mistland is the highlight. If you are only going to try them and try one song, come right here. Best track on the album, Mistland. As with a lot of progressive metal bands, most of these songs are around 10 minutes in length. So the 5th track is also the final track, Voyage of Gargani. Now, this is probably my 2nd favorite track on the entire album. So they're really finishing this concert strongly, as I think the best 2 songs are the final 2 songs. This is 10.5 minutes of heavy metal bliss. And the thing about it is, and I've complained a lot about long songs. You get up in that 10, 11, 12-minute mark, you better have something special to say. But I have to say, so many of their songs are in the 10 plus, but I always feel like they just fly by. I think they do so much in the song, and I'm so enraptured in the song that the time just flies by, and you're like, was that 10.5 minutes? Seemed more like a 6 or 7 minute song. So really like that. Now, the only nitpick I'll have is this. On this final song, there's like a 2-minute intro, and then there's like a 1.5-minute outro. You might want to put those into separate tracks, and I'll tell you why. When you're listening to the full album, you want to get that concert experience. So I have no complaints of those things being in there because it's like being live, and I like that. But by the 100th time you've listened to this album, you might not want to have listened to that intro and that outro 100 times. They might start to get tedious after a while because while they are part of the live experience, they don't really add a lot to the song. So that would be my one suggestion, is have like a little intro, have the song, then the little outro. So over time, when you don't want to take 2-3 minutes out of your day to listen to those intros and outros one more time, you can go right to the song. Just a tip for all heavy metal bands. Sometimes I'm perplexed as to why they separate the tracks when it seems like the 2 can't be separated. But then there's times where you have something that's a little bit filler because you're building up the anticipation in the concert arena, the concert stadium, but it's not necessarily something you want to listen to over and over again. And then you don't split out the tracks. It's just one of those things that I wish heavy metal bands were a little bit more consistent and put a little more thought and care into. But again, the middle of this, where the actual song is one of the strongest closers to a concert I've heard in a long time. Fantastic work. So the question we had at the very beginning of this video is, can Iotunn deliver the magic live that they've had in their past studio albums? And the answer is a resounding yes. I think their concert is even better than their studio albums. The vocals, like, you never know, right? Sometimes these vocalists do a lot of tricks in the studio. I didn't think it'd be the case, but, you always want to make sure. Just as good live as in the studio. And that is the best compliment you can give a singer. So overall, if you've never listened to Iotunn, go back, listen to their first 2 studio albums. They're both epic. And then come right here to their live album. And you will not be disappointed. You might find, like I have, that you have a new favorite band.